Hey, everybody. I have on the line with me a very special guest, and we're going to be talking about overcoming obstacles. And the reason I want to talk about this is because I have been through quite a few myself, and overcoming things I think, is something very important for us to discuss. When I was in school, I'll tell everybody a quick little story. I was actually talking to my guidance counselor, and he told me that I would never be anything better than a McDonald's janitor. And even though I was in, I made 4.0, I had a 4.0 GPA and I did all that kind of good stuff. He didn't believe in me and he told me I was going to be a failure. And I used that to actually get to where I was today because I did not believe that and I was never going to accept that. So we all have obstacles. And in the art industry, I have run into so many people throughout the years that is extremely talented, but they run into that wall and they can't seem to get past it, and they become their own worst nightmare because they either don't believe in themselves enough, or B, they give up because they don't know how to get over it. And everybody knows that I bring people on my show that are able to, that have gotten through things, or they've told you how they got through it, and I hope that they become an inspiration. And today I have a great friend of mine. His name is James Miller. He's not only a licensed psychotherapist and psychiatrist, but he's going to be here to talk to you about some of his own situations, how he overcame them, and probably going to give us some good advice on how you can stay the course, believe in yourself, and get to where you want to get to. So this is going to be very inspirational. I hope you guys enjoy it. Welcome to the show, James. How you doing today?
Thank you so much. I'm so proud and so honored to be on your show. You have done so much, and I'm so glad to be on your show and to get to talk with you and talk about all these great things.
Well, I know for everybody out there, he's helped me tremendously. I can't even begin to express how that has helped me. He knows my story, and I kind of told my story on a past show, so you guys kind of have an idea of how far I've come. He's been a big inspiration over this for the last couple months, and I can't thank you enough either. But you told me about some things that really happened to you that you've had to overcome in your life. And I'm sure you've been told that you can't do things. I'm sure that you've run into some obstacles that have seemed like the wall is 100 feet tall. How am I going to get through this? So give me give me a story about what you've been through and like one of your biggest accomplishments.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you. I was thinking about this when you asked me, like, what would you like to talk about? And I was like, it's something that I think is the irony is it's huge, in other words. So I remember I was in graduate school and I was working on my licensure to be a psychotherapist. And when I was in graduate school, everyone but my favorite professor, she's like a grandmother to me, everyone said, James, you should change your career. You're not going to be good at this. This isn't for you. And they just went on and on. And the funny thing was, I heard them say it, but it didn't really resonate with me until after I graduated. And when my professor told me that, I was like, oh my God, they actually did say that, because I kept thinking it was a joke, whatever. I don't know why, but that's how I heard it. And so fast forward years later, I had a very successful practice in the Washington, D.C. area and had a lot of accolades. I used to teach at university and I did a lot of things in my field. And so I always remembered that when people think you should be a certain way and that made sense for them, they all of a sudden think that you should be that way. And if you don't fit into that cookie cutter stamp that they have for you, then unfortunately you're not going to do well. And so what I always tell people is the more different you are, the more you are going to, not only will you have more adversity, but you are going to be the pioneer in something. And because remember, they don't talk about people who are in second or third place. They always talk about the person who's out in front. So it's a really cool reminder that no matter how much people say or what they think about you, it's just simply a thought. It doesn't mean that's who you are. Often we have labels, or our labels are put on us. So if I'm the divorced person, or I'm the bankrupt person, or I'm this, or I'm that label then can define us if we allow it to. So I would have been the person who shouldn't have graduated, who shouldn't have done this, who shouldn't have done that. You would be considered something else. You'd be, whatever that label was. And that's the problem, because when we allow a situation or an event to define who we are, unfortunately, we're limiting ourselves to not become the person that we could become, or the person that we will become. Because I guess what I always say is, we are all self-made people. So whatever your success is, right or wrong, healthy or not for you, is based off of what you've allowed other people to say to you or impart into you, or something you've allowed yourself to believe. And so that's why it's so important to keep in mind that you create your success.
And I know when I heard it from my guidance counselor, that hurt. that hurt bad, because those are the ones that are supposed to be guiding you to, be successful. And so when I heard that, I was like, wow, I can't believe you're actually saying this to me. And then, but so I know that if we hear it from people like our parents or our family members that we can't do it, it's going to weigh a lot harder than just some Joe Schmo down the street. But I do know that if you keep hearing it over and over, we tend to believe it. So how do we stop that?
Well, I want to jump back into something you just said as far as the parents. I remember I was 21 years old and I had some life circumstances happen to me. And my family, or my parents, we had gotten this huge disagreement, and unfortunately there was a rift between us for a while. And in that moment, this was probably the hardest lesson I learned was my parents are fallible. My parents are doing the best they can with whatever belief system they have. And with that, that's when I realized everybody is just like everybody else. Now, granted, we know that, but when it comes to my parents or comes to someone that's very, very close to us, the recognition that they're not on this pedestal that we grew up thinking they were at, to know that they do make mistakes. And that's a hard lesson that I think everybody I've worked with has come to terms with, to say someone that they thought was so high up there, all of a sudden they're real and they make mistakes. And that becomes a real pivotal moment to say, okay, I recognize that. Do I forgive them? Or do I allow that rift to continue and for me to, go a separate path and to never speak with them again? And of course, it's there's no right or wrong answer. It's just something it's just that awareness that when people do make mistakes, and they will, we either allow those mistakes or allow those opinions to influence us or not influence us. So there will be a pivotal developmental time in everybody's life when they do have that recognition, and it's pretty powerful overall.
It is, and I know. Let's see here. I've been probably in the art industry since 2002. And I do know that when I went through things, I sometimes ran into a wall. Now, I believe with this wall, there's a couple things you could do. You could give up, walk away, and turn around, or you can go through it, over it, under it, around it. It just depends on the path that you choose to do. I don't believe anything's impossible. So that's kind of my belief. But I know that I've run into a lot of bands that have been incredibly talented and honestly better than some of the stuff I hear on the radio. But when they hit that wall, they it's like they don't know how to get around it. And sometimes their own, I know this is going to sound stupid to a lot of people out there, but sometimes success causes them to shut down and they're afraid of success. And that could be one of the things that keeps them from going over that wall. What advice would you give to somebody that is dealing with that?
A lot of times when people do have success, then it's the fear of, can I maintain that success or can I be something greater? And that's usually why you find, speaking with music, that sophomore album or that second album, for some people it's so much better, or just even sequels in movies. It's either really, really good or it's a complete flop and nobody ever hears about it. And that's the struggle that many people have, is because they use yesterday's success to create tomorrow's future. And that doesn't work, because you can't go off what was successful yesterday as far as your creative mind from yesterday. Everything is new. And so how do you stay fresh and current with what's healthy for you, as opposed to allowing your creativity to be determined by what happened 5 or 6 years ago? Because in that respect, we're not growing and moving forward, we become stagnant. So I always tell people, when you ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? When you can really be clear on that, that gives you the insight to say, okay, I'm doing this because I want everybody to know who I am. Okay, well, that's not going to last that long. Or I'm doing this because this is intrinsically or inside of me what I truly believe I'm supposed to do. So when you can really understand the reason behind that, or the motivation behind that, then that's when you can really buy into it to say, yes, I'm going to do this regardless. I remember just before I started Lifeology, I was back in DC. I was traveling back and forth a lot. And one of my friends, I guess he was like a friend of me, a friend of a friend, I told him what I was going to be doing. He said to me, James, why would you do that? You don't have anything to say. You don't have anything to say. Why would people even listen to you? And at that moment, I was so shocked, just like you were shocked with your guidance counselor. I just looked at him, and in that moment, I was like, wow. First off, I had some not so kind thoughts. But my second thought was, I will show you what I have to say. And then here I am years later, showing people. But just like you did, I used that to bolster me. So when I had doubts, and we all have doubts, when I would have insecurities and fears and, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Or, waking up in the middle of the night, being worried about finances, etc., I would always hear that voice. You have nothing to say. And in that, I was like, I have something to say. So I always tell, just like you, I always tell people, when something happens, you have a pivotal moment to say, this is going to be a stumbling block or it's going to be a stepping stone. And that's your choice. How do you use it? So that awareness of, when you hear something, grab onto that, because it's not necessarily a negative thing unless you want it to be a negative thing. But if you can use it to be that launch pad, then anytime you have that fear, anytime you have that worry, it's a reminder of, I do have something to say. Because remember, he wouldn't have said that. Your guidance counselor wouldn't have said that unless they knew you had something to offer. Just because people say those types of things doesn't necessarily mean, well, for one, it's not relevant, because they're not relevant in your life, because as you move on and do the thing you're supposed to do, more than likely, they'll either change their opinion of you, or you'll just never hear of them again. Because remember, most people in our life are like scaffolding of a building. It's only there to support you until your time to move on. So if that's the case, he was scaffolding for me. So that was good for me to remember that, yes, I don't need him, but that's a voice in me. I can listen to that, my own insecurities of what he would have said. In other words, he voiced my insecurity. Do I really have something to say? Or I can say, yes, I'm going to use that, and I am going to find my voice, and I am going to speak to my followers. And here we are today.
That's true. And, I know there's a couple other things that factor into our success and our beliefs in ourselves. One of them is the word no. And, I think it's important to hear the word no, because it keeps us grounded and it keeps us humble and probably more hungry than we should. But some people take it really personal, and it's like, especially in the art industry, modeling industry, or acting industry, they hear the word no, and they give up. And I'm like, something, that doesn't necessarily mean you should take it personally. It just may mean that you don't fit this one particular situation. And so that doesn't mean you're a bad actor. That doesn't mean you're a bad model or you're ugly or anything like that. It just means, you just don't fit this particular situation. How important is the word no, and how does that really impact our success by making people give up or think that or taking it personally? And why should you not take it personally?
Well, that's the biggest thing, is when we are told no for anything at all, we all of a sudden take all of our insecurities, everything we know about ourselves, because we judge others by their behaviors, but we judge ourselves by our intentions. And what that means is their behavior is no. My intention is I know every single thing about me. I know everything I'm embarrassed about. I know all my flaws, all my strengths. I know all these things. And so all of a sudden, if someone says no, then I'm gonna take all the snapshot of who I am and think that, oh my gosh, they know all that, so that must be true. So they're now validating all of my insecurities, my fears, my worries. And that's why people overly personalize something, or overly personalize, because that's where the rejection comes in. What we're really doing is rejecting ourselves, because in our mind we think they know all that. So therefore they're kind of like a spotlight. When we throw it on them of what we think they know about us, it bounces back to us. So therefore, it must be true. It must be true that I can't get this part because I gained a few pounds, or it must be true because I don't say the correct words all the time, or I stutter, whatever it might be. And with that, that's why no becomes so powerful. However, another way to look at that, to kind of flip it around, is if you were to be with that person, whether it's for work, whether it's a relationship, whatever, and they weren't really for you, well, then you're not going to find success at all. One of my favorite quotes is, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. And so in that moment, if you're going with someone or connected with someone who's simply tolerating you, well, then you're missing out on that person or that opportunity that is going to celebrate you. So it's really important to remove your own personal struggle of putting my own insecurities and flaws, etc., onto what that person's saying in that word no, and simply saying, okay, well, that's no longer a viable option. Now what? There's been things that I've been working on in the past where I have all these opportunities, and then I get no. But I've learned to actually get excited about that, because the more no's I get, that just means there's going to be yes sooner or later. And so for me, I think of it in that respect. So if someone doesn't want to work with me, okay, and I don't hold on to it, because for one, they're not celebrating me. So I'm going to find that person or that opportunity that will celebrate me. So no just simply means it's either not the right time or not the right person, but there will be a right time or a right person. And so you simply have to be prepared for it. That's what I found, Emma, is difficult when you are so ready for something and an opportunity comes up and you think it's great, and all of a sudden it doesn't work out. I remember when I was in undergrad, I got a call at 10 p.m. at night, and James, we want you to be on set for this program that they were doing on my university. It was really well known, et cetera. And so 10 p.m. at night, I got the call. They're like, be on set at 7 a.m. We want you to do this event. So I did it. Got there, I felt really good. And that afternoon, they're like, oh, thanks, we appreciate it, but we gave the part to someone else. And I was like, what? How? In my mind, all this indignation of how dare you? Because I knew the person they gave it to, and I was like, I'm much better. But however, the lesson that was this, Emma, and this is what I didn't realize till later. I I can't remember the exact time frame, but a couple months later, I was given the opportunity to move to Spain for a year. I went to Spain for a year. I traveled to 24 countries, graduated a semester early, and just had all these wonderful life experiences. That guy who got the part ended up having to stay in school another year longer because he was traveling so much with that program that he wasn't able to finish school. So in that moment, it didn't make sense. But then when I took a step back and had a little bit of perspective, and that's what time always gives is perspective, I was able to say, oh my gosh, thank you, God, or thank you, universe, for closing that door. Because if I didn't have that no, I wouldn't have been able to finish my degree early. I wouldn't be able to travel to all those places, meet all these amazing people, which then led to so many other things when I was over there. So that's what I always tell people. In the moment, the no hurts so much. But when you think of your life like a jigsaw puzzle, what you do is this no, I don't know where this goes, like a jigsaw puzzle piece. This no, it's somewhere. But when I get that perspective, I'll know where that jigsaw puzzle piece goes. And therefore, I can take the step back and say, this is my life. Now I understand why it didn't happen. And I'm okay that it didn't happen. And of course, initially, we'll have that, the insecurity that we're upset, et cetera. But when you think about it, it is going to make sense one day as far as why that no happened. And so it's just getting to that other side of the expectation of, I can't wait. I can't wait for that to happen. And that's the key, is to know when to let go of a no, because if we hold on it too long, that can stop us from even looking for these other opportunities. Or you simply say, okay, I got it, and then move on and look for the next opportunity. Because opportunities don't come, healthy opportunities don't come unless we look for them. If things always come to you, which is great, but you expect that to happen all the time, that may be why you're getting some of these no's in the long run, because you're not activating your faith, if you will, or activating your own desire to find these opportunities.
You made a very, very valid point. And I remember when I first started off in the entertainment industry, I was actually a photographer, and I'm still a photographer to this day. But I got an opportunity to work with a band, and that band actually expanded a lot of things.
Oh.
And when I did that, it was kind of a tumultuous relationship, because he got angry at everybody. I mean, people were being fired left and right. We just never knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And it got to me physically, mentally, it was breaking me down. And I don't know why I stayed in there as long as I did. But when I decided to actually leave, it opened up another job for me, which I started kind of going into publicity and marketing and stuff like that. Now, I've never done that before. I was just more for writing the pitches, because I was actually a good writer. So that's where I started there. And then when I started working with Stuart as a customer, and I went through hell with the publicity guy. Then when I was leaving there, Stuart said, I got a spot for you right here. You're working with me. And he saw the ability that I have technically wise, and that's why we started the relationship with the AM/FM. So it's like I went through hell, and I couldn't understand why I had to go through that hell. But when I realized that I learned a little bit of something in each spot, which led me to be where I am today, and I have no regrets. A lot of people are like, "Oh God, I regret being there." Did you learn something? Were you able to use that to be where you are today? Yeah, I think that's exactly important too.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When in any moment you're struggling, or even when you're reveling in something, if you're really excited about it, ask yourself, what am I learning about myself right now? In that moment, I can learn. Okay, I have a lot of insecurity. I didn't realize I had that. Or I'm really proud of myself the way I responded or didn't respond, because there's always a lesson in everything we say and do. But if we're not willing to look at that or put that mirror in front of our face, and unfortunately, we're going to keep repeating that same test, if you will, over and over and over again until we finally get it. And trust me, right. I don't like tests, and so I try and learn. I try and learn it as soon as possible, and then move on.
I like to learn it the first time too, if I can. Now let's talk about success, because I think success is important, because we all want to be successful. But I think we all have our own definition of success. Yeah. Like, I've been told, why are you doing this radio show? Why are you doing any of this if it's not bringing you any financial gain? Well, for me, my success isn't necessarily financial gain. I don't really like money. I could care less about money. Yeah. But I do like helping people. And I hope that the people I bring on inspire other people to follow their dreams. I've had amazing opportunities to talk to some of the biggest stars and celebrities out there today. And I get to talk to people like you who can actually help my listeners and maybe change a life. So taking the time to sit down and talk to everybody, we all learn something and we grow from that. And I think that to me makes me successful because that's what I treasure the most. So I think, there's the financial success, there's the sustainability success, and there's the goal success that we have. Um, is any of that wrong if you
No,
don't
not at
have all
all.
three of them?
No, I don't think so at all. I think you made a really valid point, Emma. Is what does success look like for you? For me, success is quality of life. For me to create a life that I love, that I can't wait to do what I'm doing, that permeates all areas of my life. That will affect my finances. That will affect my relationships. That will affect my mood. That will affect everything I do. And so when I created my brand of Lifeology, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to create success for myself. That meant I can do whatever I'm going to do and help as many people as I can, but do it on my terms. I know we've all heard that before, but that's really was a foundation for what I want to do. And so I looked at all my different skill sets. When I left my DC practice or DC Metro practice and then came down here to Florida, I wanted to do that. And I was like, well, let me just look at all my talents. I created, where's all that intersect? And that's how I created my brand. But when it comes back to success, if someone, we've all heard, let me back up here. We've all heard or seen the Christmas shows where there's a family, but the father is working so hard and the family is so disjointed because they just want their father and he just wants to, provide all the money for them. That's a pretty common version of a disconnect between what success means for one person, as a financial gain for the family, and the family just wants the interactive quality time with the father. So when you have people or individuals who have different versions of what success is, there's going to be a disconnect, and it's not going to always jive. So whether you're in a relationship, whether you're in a work situation or a colleague, or even in your own life, you want to define what does success look like. So not only does what does success look like in my own life, but what does success look like perhaps in this particular, for example, in this interview, what does success look like for me? Success for me in this interview is to have a wonderful conversation with you, to answer the questions you have, and hopefully be able to give some great advice or comments for people that it does help impact and impart or change their life. So that's really important to be very mindful about in the moment. What does that look like? And then it could be even of the day. What's my success of the day? So you can decide what you want to focus on, but you want to make sure that it's a well-rounded version of success. Because if it's top heavy or it's not balanced, then unfortunately something is going to fall. And so when you can kind of take a step back and say, okay, I'm doing a good job. I always tell people, and this is a little controversial, is just because you can make a whole bunch of money doesn't mean you should make a whole bunch of money. And the reason why is because if you make too much money, then all of a sudden are the other things not working out in your life. So quality of life, in my opinion, or success is a juggling act. And learning how to be a good juggler and a good balancer, maybe that's a better word to say, is a way to make sure that your life continually moves forward in an upright developmental state, as opposed to trying to catch this ball over here and then run over here and catch this ball, because over time it just becomes exhausting.
That's true. So true. Now, sometimes, like I said, maybe my radio show doesn't bring me a lot of money, but it can bring me a lot of opportunities that could bring in more money and success. Is it important to be able to take some of the things that you're doing and sometimes risk not making money on something, but it could have an impact to make you money or help you get this to your successful situation in this situation? Mm-hmm. So is it good to network sometimes with some of the things you do?
Great question. I think it goes back to what I initially said. When you know why and you're intentional about what you're doing or why you're doing it, that then helps you say, regardless if I'm making money right now, I'm doing this because this feels successful for me, or this feels like it's what I'm supposed to do, or this is what I get joy, or is what my passion is. That is a really good way to stay in the game, if you will. And for a lot of people, what they do is they have a full-time job and they do like a side hustle or a side gig. And over time, when the other one starts to make more money, that's when they can kind of reduce the initial full-time job and then start to do the second part of it. So I always tell people, don't quit your day job, literally, until you're able to sustain yourself with the other thing. And that's why it's so important to do it. I know for me, when I came down here, I was kind of bold. I did it. Let me do something a little bit different. I just stopped everything and said, I'm going to go 4 to 5 months without doing anything. And I started my brand. And now I still consult with some people. I enjoy it. I missed it. So I still do some of that. But it's been able to transition into a full-time gig for me. And so it always boils down to, if you love what you do, always continue to do it. And if it makes you money, or if that's a goal, is to make money, then the more often you do it, then those opportunities do arise. In fact, even my journey was this. I started down here. I started a YouTube channel. Then I was a podcast. Then I got to meet you. and now I'm on AM/FM 247, which I love. You guys have been wonderful to me. And from there, now I'm moving on to television, which you are going to be one of my guests on my TV show coming up very soon. So it's great. I mean, I didn't know what I was doing, but situations and things just rolled out for me. Now, it's not always that easy. Of course, I had stress. I had all these fears and doubts and worries as well. So I don't want to minimize that because that's part of the journey. But the more you continue to do something and you're passionate about it and you are really focused on it, then those different metrics of success start to roll out, and that's when you start to see the return on your investment.
Absolutely, and I think that's very important too. And I know sticking the course, even though it is tough, is not easy to do. It's easy to give up. And sometimes, you know what, you're going to shoot for something that you really want, and it's just not going to work out. But I don't consider that a failure. I consider that a learning experience, because you could take what you learned from there and maybe try it again. I believe that the only way that we can fail is a regret, because that means it's too late and it's you've never had the chance to try it. So those are the things that I believe in. And I believe that just staying the course if you can, because it may not happen every day. I mean, I think people have these irrational ideas that they're going to wake up, they're going to start up a business, and within 6 months, it's going to make them millions. And that's not necessarily the case. We have people that, they go out and they try to be an actor, and they think that they're going to go to their first audition, they're going to get the role that they want, they're going to become an overnight celebrity, but bam, they're on their Oscars and Emmys, and that's not reality. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people get it right out the gate, but generally it takes a lot of no's, it takes a lot of yeses, and a lot of other opportunities. Music the same way. You may put out your first album and maybe a complete flop, but then you try maybe country, and all of a sudden, here you go. Here's your success. So I believe in staying the course, but I also believe in evolving as you go, as you learn, because that will help you, get to those situations that you didn't think you could.
Yeah. There's a quote, and I'm not going to butcher it. I'm going to get it right this time. It says, "She who quits the race halfway through goes the same distance she would have gone had she finished the race." So what that means is, if you start, it's complicated, but if you are halfway through the race and you stop it and you turn around and go the other way, well, you're halfway there. So why not just complete the race? And that's what happens with people when they invest in something or try something or do something. They're like, oh, this is too hard, but they're so close to having that outcome or that breakthrough that they're looking for. So that just be encouraged, for your listeners, is if you go or feel like I can't do this anymore, you're probably a lot closer than you think, because you think about. There's what's called the hero's journey. We've all seen those the Gerald Tolkien, Lord of the Rings, those types of movies. They have the hero goes on a quest, and all these things happen. The hero doesn't want to do it, but he does it. He's reluctant, and all these trials and tribulations happen, and then he has the big fight at the end. And that's really what our life is like when you think about it. When you're trying to do something to move beyond in your life, you're just like that hero in the story. You have all these different things that happen, but what do you do with it? So when you think of it in that construct or in that way, you'll find that the closer you are, the more discouraged you're going to be, because that mountain gets steeper and steeper and steeper until you get to the very top. But you're going to get to the top. So if you give up and go back the way where you started, you can do that. But if you wanted something else already, then why would you go back to what you didn't want to be a part of? And so that's just something to really consider, is if you didn't like it before, why are you going to like it again? And so that's a good encouragement. To really create that quality of life that you're looking for, that success, is to keep pushing a little bit further and further. And it goes back to the whole thing of saying no. No isn't bad. It's just simply you pivot and you do something slightly different, and then you're able to finally reach that mountaintop.
Now, I know some people, let's just say, for instance, they were in business their whole life. They crunch numbers. They were an accountant. Then all of a sudden they get this bug up their butt and they want to become a chef, and they don't know anything about it. Do you encourage that, or do you tell them to learn a little bit about it from other people, or do they just jump in, balls to the wall, let's go do this and see what happens?
Research states that we, as a professional, you have more than 6 versions of what your profession is going to look like. So I would encourage people, why not? Why not do it? If it's something you want to do, and of course you need to make money, well, you're going to have your day job, and then you're going to try something else. What was her name? Eleanor Roosevelt said, do something you fear every single day. brilliant woman. And so with that, if you fear doing something or trying something, well, that's unfortunately not growing and developing. So if you don't know how to do something, ask. Nowadays with technology, it's just simple. Let me type something into the search engine. Boom, there's a list of every, step by step of things I need to do. And that's where, and I say this respectfully, probably applies to my life as well, is when we create excuses of, oh, I don't know how to do that. Well, you just simply have to type in a couple of things on your computer and you'll figure it out. So that's something where we no longer have that fear, where before it could have been when I was a kid, but that's no longer the case anymore. And if you don't know how to do something, you just simply ask. And so if you know someone who's a professional about something, people like to talk. Just go take them out for coffee or just give them a call. Say, hey, can I talk to you for 10, 15 minutes? That is something people always love to give back, or the healthy people love to give back. I'll say it that way. And they want to pay it forward. And so the people with whom you surround yourself are those individuals more than likely who'd want to pay it back. So if you don't know how to start a business, who do you know that starts a business? If you want to have more joy in your life, who do you know that has a lot of joy in their life? If you want to, be more patient with someone, who do you know that has a lot of patience? And so it doesn't have to be always job related, which is important, but it could be different characteristics that you see that you would really like to learn more about. So if you can get a mentor, so important to get any type of mentor that can mentor you either in one specific thing or in a lot of things that they themselves have found success. So if you want to try something new, by gosh, why not do it? Because once again, we have average 6 versions of how we roll out for the rest of our adult life.
I love that. Now, let's talk about Lifeology, because that's obviously your baby. You've grown it into something amazing. It's got a TV show. I'd love to hear the inspiration behind it, what you hope to accomplish from it. Obviously, like you said, started out as YouTube, and then it kind of went into a radio podcast. So tell me about your show. Tell me about the TV show that it's evolving into, because I think people would really love to be able to tune in and listen to it and learn from you.
Yeah, thank you. So it's, once again, it's Lifeology with James Miller. So it's very, very, very creative. My radio show is Lifeology, or James Miller Lifeology Radio, but the TV show is Lifeology with James Miller. And what's different about this one is it really looks at individuals from the standpoint of, we all may appear different, look different, have different political affiliations, different religions, different whatever, but we're all the same when it comes to our emotions. We all know what it feels like to feel joy, peace, rage, bitterness, anger, all those emotions, we all know. And so, especially when you look at the world today, it's so divisive from all different types of people, very polarized. You're either, if you're this, that means you're the far version of this, or you're this, or that. And it's unfortunate. So what the great thing about my show, in my opinion, is it helps dispel what stereotypes are. It helps people recognize that their neighbor, whom they thought was different, is not so different after all. So I get to talk to so many wonderful people like yourself who have lives that people may not understand, but when they hear the struggle and they hear the emotions that go along with it, all of a sudden they think, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that this certain type of person or this whatever over here, I thought they were like this, but they're not. In psychology, we have what's called global labeling. Global labeling is essentially one person that a person interacted with, and all of a sudden is the spokesperson for everyone that's like that person. Everyone that may look that way are now the same version of that. So that's unfortunately what happens is, if someone has a quote negative interaction with a certain type of person, then all of a sudden everybody else who looks like that, sounds like that, whatever, is now just like that. So my show really breaks down that global labeling to help people recognize, like I said, people may look different and be different, but they're not different. And so that's the really cool thing about it. We're going to be filming up to 13 episodes for the first season, and filming is going to start very, very soon. And then from there, we're already talking about second season, what that looks like. I already know what it's like for what third season looks like. I eventually want to I'll be on TV 5 days a week and for a 52-minute, well, in other words, an hour-long talk show. But for right now, it's a 26-minute show, and we'll be filming either in Utah, Nashville, or also in Florida. So it's going to be really, really exciting. And so you have to check your local listings for when it's going to air.
I can't wait to see it. I know I love your radio show, and that was one of the things that made me want to talk to you, because of how you look at things at a different perspective. You're easy to talk to, and somebody I definitely wanted to work with. So that's really cool. And I can only imagine what this TV show is going to be. It's going to bring people see people in different lights, different lifestyles and everything else. I'm excited. I can't wait to see it.
And thank you. I really appreciate that. I really do, Emma. And the other really cool thing I didn't mention was at the very end, I'll have discussion points that I want people to talk about when the show's over with. So I want families to watch it. I want groups of friends to watch it. I want whomever just to watch it together. Because with those discussion points, then you can really have a dialogue. And that's what I think we're lacking in the world today is a dialogue. People don't talk about some things that are just different. So just because things are different doesn't mean it's bad. It's just different, and different is good. And so with that diversity, it allows for people to really have that dialogue. So to have people really kind of expose some of their own ignorance, if you will, about certain topics, and then people can, parents can talk with their kids about that. And so it just really allows for dialogue. And that's really what Lifeology is about. We all have